Namaste all, and welcome to our continuing series on the life divine with our beloved Ranga. We are continuing in the chapter, The Evolutionary Process, Ascent and Integration, and we're on page 732, beginning with the sentence, "An evolutionary process must be by the very terms of the problem." And we did the summary last.
Yes. So, Sriranda has told us that there is an evolution because the superconscient has involved itself in the inconscient, just like the tree is involved in the seed. And he says there has to be an evolution. And in the evolution, the perfection of man's consciousness has to include all the three levels of the divine existence: transcendent, cosmic, and individual. Now he is discussing in this chapter the process of evolution. How does evolution take place? There is another thing which he has already told us also, that when there is a evolution of one substance from another substance, if it is already involved, that's what we are going to read today in this one. If it is already involved, it comes out one by the pressure of its own, you can say, yeast.
Its own force.
The force from above,
Yes.
The force from above and the force from below. They combine and then it comes up. So he is describing here the process of evolution. Okay, so we'll read the summary of the previous para so that we get a continuity. The end of this evolutionary ascent must be the complete transformation of ignorance into knowledge, of inconscience into total consciousness, of incapacity into omnipotence. Each step of the ascent is a grade nearer to the spiritual consummation. You're going nearer and nearer to the... The beginning is the evolution from inconscience. The middle is the evolution in ignorance. The final is the liberation of spirit into total consciousness and knowledge. The process that we see in the lower hemisphere of matter, life and mind, of already evolved states, must also continue into the future, since the law of growth in nature is the same consistent process. This is what he said in the previous para. So now we read the next para. An evolutionary process must be, by the very terms of the problem to be solved, a development in some first established basic principle of being or substance, of something that basic principle holds involved in itself, or else admits from outside itself and modifies by the admission. For it must necessarily modify by its own law of nature all that enters into it and is not already part of its own nature. This must be so even if it is a creative evolution, in the sense of manifesting always new powers of existence that are not native to the first foundation but introduced into it, accepted into an original substance. If on the contrary, there is already there in involution, present in the first foundation, but not yet manifested or not yet organized, the new principle or power of existence that has to be evolved, then when it appears, it will still have to accept modification by the nature and law of the basic substance. But also, it will modify that substance by its own power, its own law of nature. If further It is aided by a descent of its own principle already established in its own full force above the field of evolution and pressing down into that field to possess it, then the new power may even establish itself as a dominant element and considerably or radically change the consciousness and action of the world in which it emerges or into which it enters. But its force to modify or change or to revolutionize the law and working of the original substance chosen as the evolutionary matrix will depend upon its own essential potency. It is not likely that it will be able to bring about an entire transformation if it is not itself the original principle of existence, if it is only derivative and instrumental power and not the first puissance. Nowadays we have decided to go through the whole text and we are reading the summary, but otherwise you would have to discuss each point. I'll tell you basically what he's saying here. He is saying that evolution can proceed in two ways. One is, like matter, all the elements above matter are involved in it already. And they keep coming out one by one because they are already there. By the pressure of its own fermentation, if you want, and by the pressure of the higher planes of consciousness. Then there is another way evolution can also take place. Okay. So, suppose there is no involved qualities in matter, and something else is coming from outside and interfering in it. So, this is what he is saying. We can think of it in this way. Take two glasses of water. One is a pink color, the other is a blue color. Now the blue color one is the one that has to evolve, but it has no involved elements to evolve. So when this pink is put into it, the pink is also affected by the blue, and the blue is also affected by the pink. So this is what basically he is saying, that an element that comes in, for instance, life and mind are involved already in matter. So if it is already involved, by the pressure inside, life comes out. But when it is coming out, it is not a pure life element. It is life in the material field, conditioned by matter. That we can see also, we'll put it in this way. Life is essentially Shakti, force. But force is of different types. Okay? Force can be a wind. It can be the sun. Its nature is fusion. It can be the atomic energy in an atom. That is fission. So different types of force. The lightning is electrical force. Life, when we speak of life, it's a force which is put into matter and life comes out. So life is a force which is conditioned by matter. It's essentially a force, but you don't see this life purely by itself in the world except in matter. Okay? So this basically, so when life comes into matter, it affects life, it affects matter, but matter also is affecting it. So life itself is conditioned by the ignorance and insensitivity of matter. So first of all you have the worm, which is not fully developed life, but slowly life asserts itself and you have higher forms of animals. But still the highest animal also is not pure life. It is life conditioned by matter. Even when mind comes in, mind conditions the animal, but it is itself also conditioned by the animal nature. So that's why we have so much of animality in us. You know? So this is what Simla is saying, that there are different types of evolutions. Now, is it possible for something coming from outside and entering here to change it fully. That's what he's saying. So we have seen now, when life is coming into matter, it does not change matter fully, only you have a matter which is, life has been injected into it. You have animals. When mental principle comes into matter, then is produced man, which is mind entering into matter. Your brain is mind entering into matter. So now Srinath is asking a question. Every time this is happening, the transformation is not full. But we want the God consciousness to come into here. So which principle is it that will completely transform matter? That's the question he is discussing. Clear? So he says that so long as there is an interaction and the incoming force is conditioned by matter and the matter itself is also conditioned, not fully itself, there must be something higher up. If we have to assume that evolution is going on and will reach its peak. Okay? That's what he's saying. So I'll read out the summary of what he's saying here. Actually, this and the next para. What exactly is evolution and how does it work? An original substance evolves in possible ways. First, powers other than the original substance are already involved in it, and when given the right conditions, they emerge one by one. Example, the seed and the tree. The tree is already involved in the seed, and when the conditions are right, there has to be proper light, there has to be water. When the conditions are right, then one by one these things come out. First only the stem comes out, then the leaves come out, then later on the flowers come out, and then finally the fruit comes out. So it's a sequence like that which goes on. If mind and life are already involved in matter. But if these are not involved in matter, what happens? That's the second type of evolution. Okay? First, powers other than the original substance are already involved in it, and when given the right conditions, they emerge one by one. Example, seed and tree. The hidden superior power emerges and changes the original substance. Life changes matter. But it also gets influenced and limited by the lesser original substance. Clear? The power to transform the lower is not complete if the higher is not the highest. So there has to be a highest, which is saying that it is supermind. When supermind comes, it will transform matter into its own substance.
Because up until this time, there was no perfect.
That's right. The upper
force.
principles have never been perfect.
Yes.
So it changes only to a certain extent. The best example of this is life is something living. But has it produced something living eternally in matter? No. Death is there. So this way, that is matter also, mind when it comes in, does it transform the animal into an intellectual being? No. It gets itself affected. Okay? That's what he's saying. So the second way of evolution could effectuate itself if the original substance has no other power inherent in it. Life has no power, but life is coming from outside and entering and creating evolution. Okay? It's not from inside. So the second way of evolution is could effectuate itself if the original substance has no other power inherent in it, but an outside power enters into it and changes it. Here too, the second substance will alter the original, but the extent to which change occurs depends upon the intensity and quality of the second. And if it is not the highest creative power, then its transformative force is limited and it gets itself affected by the lower primary substance. Life is coming in, life is perfect in itself, but when it enters matter, it produces a combination of matter and life. Okay, so thus, when life enters into matter, dead matter becomes living matter. That's a transformation. Matter is dead, it becomes living matter. But life itself gets limited by the power of death in matter. So life also has to undergo the process of death, which is the nature of matter. Matter is dead. Okay, so similarly, when mind enters into living matter, its own infinite mental power of knowledge gets restricted by the gravitational pull of the lower and becomes ignorance rather than knowledge. So, mind which has got knowledge comes in and it becomes ignorance. Okay? So, if this is so, then the powers of life and mind are not the highest creative force, because it is not creating fully changing. We want something that will change matter to its original force. The supermental has to come and make supermentalized matter. That is what Sangha is saying. So, there must be an even higher, more potent force above life and mind that has yet to manifest in matter. And its appearance here must necessarily be inevitable in the future. Why? Because you can see already the first 3-4 steps. And you can't arbitrarily say that that's all. If there has been a progress from matter to life and life to mind, why should you think it's going to stop there? It will go on. Okay, that's what he's saying. The next paragraph you're going to read is already I have summarized. So I'll just read it and we'll go on to the next one. Here, on earth, the evolution takes place in a material universe. The foundation, the original substance, the first established all conditioning status of things is matter. Matter is the first substance which has to be transformed. Mind and life are evolved in matter, but they are limited and modified in their action by the obligation to use this substance for their instrumentation and by their subjection to the law of material nature, even while they modify what they undergo and use. So, life and mind are changing matter, and matter also is affecting them. For they do transform its substance, first into living substance, then into conscious substance. They succeed in changing its inertia, immobility, and inconscience into a movement of consciousness, feeling, and life. But they do not succeed in transforming it altogether. They cannot make it altogether alive or altogether conscious. Life nature evolving is bound to death. Mind evolving is materialized as well as vitalized. It finds itself rooted in inconscience, limited by ignorance. It is moved by uncontrolled life forces which drive and use it. It is mechanized by the physical forces on which it has to depend for its own self-expression. This is a sign that neither mind nor life is the original creative power. They, like matter, are intermediaries. Successive and serried instruments of the evolutionary process. If a material energy is not that original power, then we must seek for it in something above mind or life. There must be a deeper occult reality which has yet to disclose itself in nature. So, since the evolution is not complete, there has to be another principle above. He has not yet said that it is a supermind, but that's what he is saying. So, I go to the next para.
Yes.
An original creative or evolutionary power there must be. Okay. How is Santa saying this? Because you can see that it has happened. Life has come out of matter. Mind has come out. So there is. So there must be something which is original which is causing this. That's an argument. But Although matter is the first substance, the original and ultimate power is not an inconscient material energy. For then, life and consciousness would be absent. Since inconscience cannot evolve consciousness, nor an inanimate force evolve life, there must be, therefore, since mind and life also are not that, a secret consciousness greater than life consciousness or mind consciousness, an energy more essential than the material energy. Okay. Since it is greater than mind, it must be supramental consciousness force. Since it's a power of essential substance other than matter, it must be the power of that which is the supreme essence and substance of all things, a power of the spirit. So, there is an argument here, and you can see that. We have seen that matter is there, life is there, mind is there, but nothing is perfect. But because there is an evolution, there has to be something which is determining the evolution. So, what is that? That's what he is discussing. So, it cannot be mind, it cannot be life, because it's imperfect. So, if evolution has to reach its perfection, there must be something superior to mind and life and matter. And so you can say that it's a supramental. The word supramental here is using above mind and life, not he is supramental. But just above mind and life there must be a force, okay, which is consciousness, because it is related to mind, so it has to be consciousness. And it is also force, because it is life, superior to life. So consciousness force, he is saying it has to be superior to mind, and this is the argument being given. It's very logical. Okay? So there has to be a supramental consciousness force. Since it's a power of essential substance other than matter, now there you are. Now this is again another argument. Since it's a power of essential substance other than matter, because matter is not being fully transformed by life and matter. So this original substance of consciousness force must be something other than matter. That's what he's saying. Okay. Since it must be a supernatural force, since power of that we have read. There is a creative energy of mind and a creative life force, but they are instrumental and partial, not original and decisive. Mind and life do indeed modify the material substance they inhabit. Mind and life do indeed modify the material substance they inhabit and its energies, and are not merely determined by them, but the extent and way of this mutual modification and determination are fixed by the inhabitant and the all-containing spirit through a secret indwelling light and force of supermind, an occult gnosis, an invisible self-knowledge and all knowledge. If there is to be an entire transformation, it can only be by the full emergence of the law of the spirit. Its power of supermind or gnosis must have entered into matter, and it must evolve in matter. Because we have seen that the principle of involution is there. So it is there already, it will evolve. It must change the mental into the supramental being, make the inconscient in us conscious, spiritualize our material substance. There you are. The material substance has to be spiritualized. It has to be a supramental body. The animal is matter with life. Man is matter with life and mind. So the supramental body will be matter, life, mind plus spirit.
So he's actually talking about the supramental here.
Yes, the supramental body.
Yes.
Okay, so spiritualize our material substance. Erect its law of Gnostic consciousness in our whole evolutionary being and nature. This must be the culminating emergence, or at least that stage in the emergence which first decisively changes the nature of the evolution by transforming its action of ignorance and its basis of inconscience. Ignorance and inconscience must disappear in the ultimate evolution. So, I am reading the summary of what we read just now. Evolution starts from matter. It is the original substance that transforms itself in small steps. Okay. Matter itself is getting transformed. But matter is not totally unconscious substance, because if it were so, life and mind could not have evolved out of it. Okay. Matter is seeming to be totally unconscious, but no, it is not. There is a little bit of mind and little bit of, so you could say in a way, in a rather childish way, that matter is 99.9% gross substance. 0.00005 is life. 0.000 something is mind. It is there, but fully dominated by mind. That's what everybody is saying. Okay, so evolution starts from matter. It's the original substance transforms itself in small steps. But matter is not totally unconscious substance, because if it were so, life and mind could not have evolved out of it. But since neither life nor mind could transform matter completely, it continues to remain apparently unconscious. There must be another ultimate original creative power that could transform matter completely by introducing immortality and consciousness. One thing we must be clear what Srimad is saying. Srimad is not saying when the supermind comes, it will completely transform all matter. He is saying matter in the human being or the supermental race. You must be very clear about that. There is a lot of people who think that when the supermind descends, matter itself will become gold. No. The transformation is taking place in...
How will the effect be on the earth?
Beyond the
Earth.
No, it has to be on earth. The transformation has to take place here. There will be a being which will have a body, but that body will be supramentalized body, spiritualized body. There will be a life which is full of power. There will be a mind which is not ignorance, but knowledge. That's what he's saying.
But that body must be transformed on earth.
Yes, it has to be on the
Yes.
earth itself.
Yes.
That's the thing. Okay, so by introducing this power must be above mind. We call it supermind or gnosis. Now he's saying we'll give a name to that. So we call it supermind or gnosis. If that power descends from above and enters matter, then death would be abolished and ignorance would be destroyed. Matter would be spiritualized and immortality and knowledge would be openly manifested here itself. So as I said, we must be very clear. When we say life has evolved out of matter, okay, does it mean that all matter has become life? No. Only some matter has become life. A stone has remained a stone. But matter which is capable of housing life has become animals. Similarly, have all animals evolved into man? No. Only those animals which are capable of receiving the higher mental principle. Okay. So, man also, all men will not be transformed. Only those men who are ready to transform their substance into that spiritual substance. So, it's a base. Matter will remain, life will remain as it is, human beings will remain as they are, yogis will remain as they are, but each is evolving. When I say as they are all in evolution. And there will be a supramental race at the highest level. We could put it in another way. We can say there is more matter than life. There is more life than mind. In other words, plants and animals are less than all matter. Some matter has not transformed itself. Similarly, all animals have not transformed themselves into human beings. Animals are still there. Similarly, the supramental race also, all men will not be supramentalized. Only those who are, so it's a pyramidal structure, becoming less and less and less. But it is on earth that is happening. Okay, so spirit manifested in matter, that would be the culmination of the evolution. Spirit manifested in matter. We read the next para. This movement of evolution, of a progressive self-manifestation of the spirit in a material universe, has to make its account at every step with the fact of the involution of consciousness and force in the form and activity of material substance. Okay. For it proceeds by an awakening of the involved consciousness and force and its ascent from principle to principle, from grade to grade, from power to power of the secret spirit. But this is not a free transference to a higher status. The law of action, the force of action of each grade or power in its emergence is determined not by its own free, full and pure law of nature or whim of energy, but partly by the material organization provided for it, and partly by its own status, achieved degree, accomplished fact of consciousness, which it has been able to impose upon matter. So, its effectivity is in some sort made up of a balance between the actual extent of this evolutionary emergence and a countervailing extent to which the emergent power is still enveloped, penetrated, diminished by the domination and continuing grip of the inconscience. Whatever is coming in from above is getting affected by the inconscience of matter. That's what he's saying. All depends upon the more or less involved or more or less evolved condition of consciousness. How much is evolved? That's quite involved in inconscient matter, hesitating on the verge between involution and conscious evolution in the first or non-animal forms of life in matter. Non-animal forms of life, he means vegetable life. Okay, so hesitating on the verge between involution and conscious evolution in the first or non-animal forms of life in matter, consciously evolving but greatly limited and hampered in mind, housed in a living body, destined to be fully evolved by the awakening of the supermind in the embodied mental being and nature. So, to discuss each line and each sentence will take a long time. That's why we are adopting the method of. So I'm going to read out the summary of what we read just now. That we can discuss to a certain extent. The upward progress of the evolution is heavily conditioned by the density and darkness of matter, which is the starting base of the evolutionary ascent. We can look at this in another interesting way also. When the divine has decided that he is going to go into an adventure, and what is that adventure? He is going to descend himself. He is light, power, consciousness. And he descends himself into the opposite of himself and he will slowly evolve. That's a game I want to play with myself. But that game has to be a real game, not a pretense. So matter, I will make it absolutely the opposite of myself. So the difficulty I will face fully and then I will conquer. But it's not going to be an easy canter. It's not going to be an easy game. It's going to be a difficult game. That's what is meant by everything conditioned by the density and darkness of matter, which is the starting base of the evolutionary ascent. The progress proceeds by the emergence of the involved powers in matter. Life first, then mind. But life and mind emerging from matter do not possess their original native character. Life is above matter, mind is above matter, and there they have their full power. In the mind plane, knowledge is complete. In the life plane, power is complete. Okay, but not in matter, not on earth. they get diminished. Mind and life get diminished, degraded by the density and inconscience of material substance. The actual form of manifested life and mind are combinations of the powers of both. The higher emergent and the lower obstinate stability of the inconscious downward pull. Life and mind are both restricted and not allowed their free play and power of their native nature. Same thing is saying in different words. Consciousness emerging from matter at first is plant life. It achieves a higher grade with animal life. And even with the emergence of mind, it is still imperfect and ignorant. The supermind's descent into matter will fully manifest the consciousness of the spirit. So we are waiting for that to happen. In fact, it has already come, but it's a question of time. A seed planted in the soil will not sprout immediately. It will take some time. The conditions have to be right. So that's what he's saying. Where is Brahmapara? To each grade in this series, achieved by the evolving consciousness, belongs its appropriate class of existence. Or, one by one, there appear material forms and forces. Vegetable life, animals and half-animal man, developed human beings, imperfectly evolved or more evolved spiritual beings. But because of the continuity of the evolutionary process, there is no rigid separation between them. Each new advance or formation takes up what was before. The animal takes up into himself living and inanimate matter. Man takes up both along with the animal existence. It takes up both. There are furrows left by the transitional process or separating demarcations settled by the fixed habit of nature. But these distinguish one series from another, serve perhaps to prevent a fall back of what has been evolved. They do not cancel or cut the continuity of the evolution. So if they are saying, is it possible for evolution to go up to a certain stage and fall back permanently? So they are saying no. There is an intermediary which blocks that downward descent. Okay. The evolving consciousness passes from one grade to another or from one series of steps to another, either by an imperceptible process or by some bound or crisis. Bound here means a leap, okay, not the other bound, okay, or crisis, or perhaps by an intervention from above. Now, same is saying perhaps by an intervention from above. Some descent or ensouling or influence from higher planes of nature. But by whatever means, the consciousness secretly indwelling in matter, the occult inhabitant, is able thus to make its way upward from the lower to the higher gradations, taking up what it was into what it is and preparing to take up both into what it will be. There is a transference from past to present, from present to future, with a something added to it, not just. It's not continuity, it's continuity with the progress. Thus, having first laid down a basis of material being, material forms, forces, existences, in which it seems to be lying inconscient, though in reality, as we know now, always subconsciously at work, it is able to manifest life and living beings, to manifest mind and mental beings in a material world, and must therefore be able to manifest their supermind also and supramental beings. Thus has come about the present status of the evolution, of which man is the now apparent culmination, but not the real ultimate summit. For he is himself a transitional being and stands at the turning point of the whole movement. How does Swamsa say that he is not because it is imperfect. If it is imperfect, it cannot be the culmination. Evolution, thus, being thus continuous, must have at any given moment a past with its fundamental results still in evidence, a present in which the results it is laboring over are in process of becoming, a future in which still unevolved powers and forms of being must appear till there is a full and perfect manifestation. The past has been the history of a slow and difficult subconscious working with effects on the surface. It has been an unconscious evolution. The present is a middle stage, an uncertain spiral in which the human intelligence is used by the secret evolutionary force of being and participates in its action without being fully taken into confidence. So, man is at the middle stage. Okay. It is an evolution slowly becoming conscious of itself. The future must be a more and more conscious evolution of the spiritual being until it is fully delivered into a self-aware action by the emergent Gnostic principle.
Do you feel that's happening now?
Not really.
Yeah, I agree.
You don't see it yet.
You don't see it.
But we have faith that it will come.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, there are signs which the uninstructed man will not be able to recognize. For instance, children being born today are of extraordinary intelligence. They are called the indigo children. 5-year-olds
Yeah.
with intellectual powers. So many different types of things. 11-year-olds teaching higher mathematics and higher physics in colleges.
3-year-olds playing the piano
Yeah,
perfectly.
absolutely. 3-year-old children are remembering the names of all the countries and all their capitals and all their flags. We can't do that even. So that's, in that sense, yes,
Yes.
you can see the beginning. But those who don't know about the supermind will not connect it to the supermind. So slowly it is bringing about changes, but the change is not yet fully produced a supramental body. Okay. The first foundation in this emergence, the creation of forms of matter, first of inconscient and inanimate, then of living and thinking matter. Note the word thinking matter. Our brain is capable of thought, abstract thought. The brain of the animal is not capable of abstract thought. It's capable of practical thought, but not abstract thought. So, thinking matter. The appearance of more and more organized bodies adapted to express a greater power of consciousness has been studied from the physical side. That's Charles Darwin's evolution theory. The side of form building by science. But very little light has been shed on the inner side, the side of consciousness, and what little has been observed is rather of its physical basis and instrumentation than the progressive operations of consciousness in its own nature. In the evolution, as it has been observed so far, although a continuity is there, for life takes up matter and mind takes up the submental life, the mind of intelligence takes up the mind of life and sensation, the leap from one grade of consciousness in the series to another grade seems to our eyes immense. The crossing of the gulf, whether by bridge or by leap, impossible. We fail to discover any concrete and satisfactory evidence of its accomplishment in the past or of the manner in which it was accomplished. How is matter producing life? Life is something totally different from matter. So he's saying there is no, it seems to be a miracle. Okay, that's what he's pointing out. But we will see that there are intermediate stages. We'll see that. We fail to discover any concrete and satisfactory evidence of its accomplishment in the past or of the manner in which it was accomplished. Even in the outward evolution, even in the development of physical forms, where the data are clearly in evidence, okay, there are missing links that remain always missing. But in the evolution of consciousness, the passage is still more difficult to account for it seems more like a transformation than a passage. It may be, however, that by our incapacity to penetrate the subconscious, to sound the subliminal, or to understand sufficiently a lower mentality different from ours, we are unable to observe the minute gradations, not only in each degree of the series, but on the borders between grade and grade. The scientist who does observe minutely the physical data has been driven to believe in the continuity of evolution in spite of the gaps and the missing links. If we could observe similarly the inner evolution, we could no doubt discover the possibility and the mode of these formidable transitions. But still, there is a radical difference between grade and grade. So much so that a passage from one to another seems a new creation, a miracle of metamorphosis, rather than a natural, predictable development or quiet passing from one state of being to another with its well marked steps arranged in an easy sequence. So, Chandra is saying that in evolution, Charles Darwin's evolution, there is a gradation, but you don't see the leap very clearly. Actually, now they have seen that there are certain intermediary stages. For instance, from matter to life, there is a virus which sometimes behaves like dead matter, sometimes like a living being. Then between plant and animal, also there is something in between, the carnivorous plant. It's half animal, half plant. So similarly, the ape and the animal and man is not so clear, but both, even the animal has got intelligence to a certain extent. So there is something there. But Sridhar is saying, in the consciousness, the leap is more difficult to see the transition. But if you develop, maybe it's possible to see there also. That's what he's saying. I'll read there. It's a small summary, I'll read the summary.
Yes.
The physical and biological evolution has been observed and studied by Darwin. But the inner psychological evolution has not been evaluated at all. In the biological evolution of living forms, a continuity has been seen. Yet, from the consciousness point of view, the leap from grade to higher grade seems almost miraculous. How does matter become life? And how, again, does plant life become animal life? How does mental awareness come into sub-mental, unintelligent life? These transitions seem impossible. However, if sufficiently scrutinized, perhaps the links in this inner development could be discovered. Still, the transitions do seem to be miracles of metamorphosis. That's what he's saying. So we stop here today.